No one ever heard the fall of the Thea system, because silence was the only weapon the chorus ever used, and it was a weapon for which there was no defense, no shield, no conceivable countermeasure. They didn't arrive in a blaze of plasma or a storm of kinetic rounds. Their coming was a whisper that traveled ahead of them on the solar winds, a psychic null field that simply unwrote civilizations from the cosmic ledger. One cycle, Thea was a bustling hub of 6 colonized worlds, its net space humming with trillions of voices, its libraries holding the histories of a dozen species, its people living and dreaming and loving under the light of their yellow sun. The next cycle, the sun still shone on the same cities, the same starports, the same fields of genetically perfected grain. But the voices were gone. The books were blank. The data drives held nothing but meaningless strings of zeros. And every living creature, from the most complex sentient to the simplest microbe, was a hollow vessel, an automaton going through the motions of a life it no longer remembered, its consciousness scooped out and discarded into the void. This was the terror of the chorus. Not that they killed you, but that they made it so you had never been. They were less a conqueror and more a cosmic editor, redacting inconvenient cultures from the story of the universe. And now they're silent. Iridescent fleets were drifting inexorably toward the Sol system, toward Earth. On the fringes of the Kuiper Belt, aboard the experimental warship Event Horizon, Commander Anya Sharma watched the tactical display and felt the familiar cold dread that had been her constant companion for the last 3 years, ever since she'd been the one to lead the first survey team into the Thean ghost system and walk through cities of the living dead. The ship around her was humanity's answer, a desperate, last-ditch gamble born from a theory so radical it was considered heresy by most of the scientific community, the anomaly drive. It wasn't a weapon in the traditional sense. It didn't fire missiles or project energy. Instead, it weaponized reality itself, allowing the event horizon to momentarily slip between the folds of space-time, to exist in a quantum superposition where it was both everywhere and nowhere at once, a ghost in the machine of the universe. To the chorus, whose entire method of attack relied on perceiving and erasing conscious thought, a ship that could effectively cease to exist should, in theory, be invisible, a perfect predator to hunt a silent killer. The theory, however, had never been tested against a live chorus vessel, and now Anya was leading a flotilla of 3 such ships, the Horizon, the Straylight, and the Penumbra, into the path of an oncoming wave that had already silenced a dozen stars. Her second-in-command, Jian Li, stood beside her, his face a mask of professional calm that didn't quite hide the tension in his jaw. "The scout drone is pinging back its last telemetry, Commander," he said, his voice a low baritone that was an island of stability in the humming tension of the bridge. "The leading edge of the chorus wave is less than 2 AU out. They're moving faster than the models predicted." Anya nodded, her gaze fixed on the main view screen, which was still just a field of silent, indifferent stars. "They always do. Their ships don't follow conventional physics because they aren't entirely physical. They're part machine, part psychic projection, part something else we don't have a word for yet." She had pored over the data from Thea, stared at the unimages of the chorus vessels until her eyes burned, trying to comprehend an enemy that defied comprehension. The ships were beautiful, Daichoi, in a terrifying, organic way, like crystalline nautiloids spun from frozen light, pulsing with an internal luminescence that seemed to mock the darkness of space. They didn't communicate. They didn't negotiate. They simply were, and their presence erased everything else. "Bring the anomaly drive to standby," Anya ordered, her voice resonating with a calm she did not feel. "Synchronize our clocks with the Straylight and the Penumbra. When we engage, we'll have less than a millisecond of temporal drift tolerance. Any more and we might just erase ourselves. In the engine room, nestled deep within the ship's core, Dr. Elias Vance heard the commander's order and felt a familiar tremor in his hands, a side effect of spending too much time near the humming, reality-bending machinery he had designed. He was a physicist, not a soldier, a man who had dreamed of unlocking the secrets of the cosmos, not turning them into a weapon of war. The anomaly drive was his life's work, a machine that manipulated the very fabric of causality, and now it was humanity's only shield against an enemy that treated consciousness like a weed to be pulled. He ran a diagnostic, his eyes scanning the cascading lines of code that represented the delicate balance between existence and non-existence. The drive was stable, its quantum core humming at the precise frequency needed to decouple their ship from the standard timeline. "Core is green, Commander," he relayed over the comm, his voice tight. "The anchor is holding steady. We're ready to become ghosts." Back on the bridge, a new alert flashed on Anya's console. "Proximity alert," Gian said, pointing to a section of the star chart. "Something's coming in fast. It's not a chorus vessel. It's small, old, a civilian freighter signature. Pre-chorus war registry." Anya frowned. On screen, the image resolved into a battered, ugly transport ship, a relic from a bygone era, its hull scarred and pitted from decades of hard travel. It was broadcasting a wide-band distress call, a frantic, looping message in archaic code. "This is the freighter Odysseus." A panicked voice crackled across the speakers, distorted by static and fear. "We are refugees from the Kepler-90 system. They were right behind us. They're everywhere. We saw them. The lights. They just turned everyone off. We're the only ones who made it out. For God's sake, is anyone out there?" Anya felt a knot tighten in her stomach. Kepler-90 was supposed to have been evacuated weeks ago. "They're bait," she said softly, a sickening certainty dawning on her. "It's a trap. The chorus doesn't leave survivors." Gion's eyes widened in understanding. "They're using the freighter to draw us out, to force us to reveal ourselves." The chorus was learning. They had encountered human resistance before, scattered fleet actions that had ended in silent, one-sided massacres. But in those encounters, humanity had fought with lasers and missiles, with weapons the chorus could perceive and ignore. Now, they seemed to be hunting for something different, for the ghost they couldn't see. "They know something like us is out here," Anya murmured, her mind racing. "They're adapting." The command staff on the bridge looked to her, their faces pale in the glow of their consoles. Protocol was clear: maintain stealth. Do not engage unless the mission is compromised. Do not respond to non-military transmissions. But the voice from the Odysseus was raw with terror, a genuine plea from people who believed they were the last embers of their world. "Commander!" Gian pressed gently. "What are your orders?" To answer the call was to walk into the trap. To ignore it was to sacrifice not just the ship, but the very principle they were fighting for, the preservation of human life and memory. Anya's grandfather had been a historian, a man who believed that a culture was not its buildings or its borders, but the sum of its stories, its memories. The chorus didn't just kill people, they killed stories. And here was a ship, the Odysseus, its name a deliberate echo of a story thousands of years old, begging for a final chapter that wasn't just silence. "They want us to show our hand," Anya said, her voice hard as steel. "So let's show them a fist." She turned to her helm officer, a young woman named Maya who piloted the Horizon with an artist's grace. Maya, lay in a course that takes us past the freighter. Close enough to be seen. Gian, power up the forward railguns. Use the old chemical propellant rounds. Nothing energy-based. Let's give them a target they can understand. Gian looked at her, a question in his eyes. They were supposed to be a scalpel, not a sledgehammer. Using conventional weapons would make them a visible, tangible target. And the anomaly drive, he asked. Keep it on standby, Anya replied, a grim smile touching her lips. When they close in on the target we give them, that's when we disappear. Daur. Vance, be ready for a flicker strike. We're going to phase in, fire, and phase out before they can even process our existence. It was an untested maneuver, a theoretical application of the drive that could tear the ship apart if timed incorrectly. Vance's voice came back over the comm, strained but resolute. Understood. Commander, the engine will be ready. As the Event Horizon altered its course, accelerating toward the freighter, the empty space around the small ship began to shimmer. Like heat haze on a desert road, the void itself seemed to warp and distort, and from that distortion, the chorus fleet emerged. It wasn't a sudden appearance, but a slow, graceful bloom, as if they were flowers of destruction unfolding from a dimension of silence. 10 of them, then 20, then 50, a silent armada of crystalline predators surrounding the tiny, desperate freighter. The Odysseus's transmissions cut out, replaced by a wave of pure psychic dread, a feeling of utter hopelessness that washed over the bridge of the Event Horizon. It was the chorus's primary weapon, the null field, expanding to claim its next victims. On the bridge, crew members swayed, their faces slackening as the wave of erasure touched their minds. Psychic dampeners to full, Anya barked, gripping her command chair as a phantom feeling of loss, of forgetting her own name, tried to claw its way into her thoughts. Red lights bathed the bridge as the ship's internal systems fought against the encroaching silence. The chorus fleet ignored the approaching horizon at first, their attention focused on the freighter, the bait in their elaborate trap. They were waiting, patiently, for their real target to reveal itself. They're waiting for the energy signature of a warp drive or advanced weaponry. Gian analyzed, shaking his head to clear the last vestiges of the null field's touch. They still think we're a conventional warship. Good, Anya said through gritted teeth. Maya, get us in range. Gian, target the lead vessel, the largest one. Let's make some noise. The Event Horizon surged forward, a dark arrow aimed at the heart of the glowing fleet. The forward railguns, ancient technology by current standards, fired with a percussive, physical roar that felt almost sacrilegious in the silent void. 2 massive slugs of tungsten, propelled by a chemical explosion, crossed the distance and slammed into the crystalline hull of the lead chorus ship. The impact was startlingly mundane. There was no grand explosion, just a spiderweb of cracks spreading across the ship's iridescent surface. The chorus vessel didn't even seem to notice, but its companions did. As one, the entire fleet turned, their collective, silent attention falling upon the Event Horizon. The psychic pressure intensified tenfold, a tsunami of nothingness aimed directly at them. They see us, Maya breathed, her hands flying across her controls. Now, Anya commanded, Dr. Vance, take us out, deep in the ship. Elias Vance slammed his hand down on the activation panel. The anomaly drive spooled up with a sound that wasn't a sound, a vibration that shook the very atoms of the crew. The world outside the view screen dissolved into a smear of incoherent light and color. The psychic onslaught vanished. The oppressive silence was gone, replaced by the deafening hum of the ship's own non-existence. They had jumped sideways in reality, slipped through a crack in the universe. For a heart-stopping 1.7 seconds, the event horizon was a ghost, a memory of a warship that had been there a moment before. Then Vance brought them back. They reappeared on the far side of the chorus formation, behind their primary line. "Flicker complete," Vance yelled into the comm, his voice hoarse. "We're back in standard space-time." Before the chorus could react, before their silent, hive mind consciousness could even process the impossible reappearance of their target, Anya gave her next order. "Jian, we're in their blind spot. Fire everything we didn't show them before. Target their engine arrays. I don't want to kill them. I want to cripple them. I want to study one. Plasma cannons, particle beams." And a volley of smart torpedoes erupted from the event horizon, a sudden, violent declaration of existence in a battlefield that had been defined by its absence. The targeted chorus ships flared brilliantly as their energy shields, designed to stop psychic attacks, proved useless against raw, physical force. One of the smaller vessels shattered into a million glittering shards, like a dropped chandelier. Another listed, its internal light flickering and dying. The stray light and the penumbra, following the horizon's lead, executed their own flicker jumps, appearing at different vectors and unleashing their own salvos. The silent, perfectly coordinated chorus fleet was thrown into disarray, their formation broken, their silent dominance shattered by an enemy that refused to play by the rules of their reality. A new sensation rippled through the human crews, not a psychic attack from the chorus, but something emanating from the damaged ships, something that wasn't silence or dread, but a raw, piercing shriek of surprise and pain, a broadcast of pure agony that was almost worse than the silence. They were feeling, for the first time, a sensation they had inflicted on countless worlds, the shock of a wound. Anya watched the chaos unfold, her knuckles white on her chair. They had hurt them. They had actually hurt them. But her victory was short-lived. The lead chorus ship, the one they had first struck with the primitive railguns, began to change. The cracks on its hull sealed, and its internal light shifted from a calm blue-green to a furious, pulsing crimson. The ship's very geometry seemed to twist, its elegant, nautiloid shape elongating, sharpening, becoming something far more menacing, something purpose-built for aggression. "Commander," Jian warned, his voice low and urgent, "that lead ship is putting out an energy reading that's off the scale. It's adapting its structure, reconfiguring itself in real time." The trap had failed, and the prey had fought back. Now, the hunter was getting angry. The crimson vessel emitted a focused pulse, not of psychic energy, but of graviton particles, a wave of distorted gravity that slammed into the stray light. The sister ship groaned, its shields buckling, its internal gravity plating failing. Anya watched in horror as the ship was twisted and compressed, its hull shrieking in protest before it imploded, vanishing in a brief, brilliant flash of blue light. The chorus hadn't just learned how to fight them, they had learned how to kill them, and the event horizon was right in their sights. The beautiful, terrible, blood-red ship turned toward them, its silent gaze promising not the peace of erasure, but the agony of annihilation. The crimson ship fired. It didn't launch a projectile. It simply flexed the space between them, and a wave of pure gravitational force, visible as a ripple in the fabric of space-time, erupted toward the event horizon. "Evasive maneuvers, now!" Anya yelled, her voice cutting through the rising panic on the bridge. "Vance, I need another flicker. I don't care what it costs." Maya threw the ship into a brutal dive, the inertial dampeners groaning as they struggled to keep the crew from being turned into paste against the forward bulkhead. The graviton wave washed over the space they had occupied a microsecond before, its passing marked by the silent, violent implosion of a nearby asteroid, which collapsed in on itself into a super-dense pebble of matter. "The drive needs to recharge," Vance's voice crackled, laced with a frantic edge. "The first jump put too much strain on the quantum anchor. Another one now could create a cascade failure and wipe us from this timeline completely." Another graviton wave pulsed from the Crimson Hunter, this one wider, a sweeping arc of force designed to box them in. On the tactical display, Anya saw the Penumbra execute its own emergency flicker jump, vanishing from the battlefield in a shimmer of distorted light. They were alone. "How long?" "Elias," Anya demanded, her eyes locked on the approaching wave. "Minimum 30 seconds for a stable jump, maybe 20 if you're willing to risk." "Well, everything." 20 seconds was an eternity. The Crimson ship was already charging for a third shot, this one looking more focused, more intense. There would be no dodging it. "Maya, get us behind that shattered chorus vessel," Anya commanded, pointing to the glittering wreck of the ship they had destroyed in their initial salvo. "Use the debris field for cover." It was a desperate move, hiding behind the corpse of their enemy, but it was all they had. The horizon veered sharply, its thrusters screaming as it slid behind the massive, crystalline fragments. The third graviton wave hit the debris field, and the effect was catastrophic. The shards of the dead ship were pulverized into a cloud of glittering dust, the shockwave of their destruction slamming into the horizon and tossing it like a leaf in a storm. Alarms shrieked across the bridge. "Hull breach on decks 7 and 9, Gian reported, his hands flying over a damage control console. "Shields are gone. We're exposed." Through the swirling dust cloud, the red light of the Hunter pulsed, a malevolent star that was slowly, patiently moving to finish them off. 15 seconds, Vance counted down over the comm. Anya closed her eyes for a fraction of a second, picturing the faces of the crew of the Stray Light. She would not lose another ship. "Gian, reroute all remaining power from weapons to the engines." "Maya, when I give the word, I want a full thrust burn directly toward the Hunter." Gian and Maya both looked at her as if she'd gone mad. "Commander," Gian asked hesitantly, "a direct charge is suicide." "They're expecting us to run," Anya said, her voice dangerously quiet. "They've adapted to our tactic, so we have to do something they can't predict, something irrational. 10 seconds. Elias. 9, 8. Burn. Maya. Now." The event horizon shot out from behind the dust cloud, not away from the Crimson ship, but straight at it, a wounded animal charging its killer. For a crucial second, the Chorus Hunter seemed to hesitate, its attack pattern thrown off by the illogical, suicidal maneuver. It was the opening they needed. 5, 4. "They're charging their main weapon again," Maya shouted, her knuckles white on the controls. 3, 2. The maw of the Crimson ship began to glow, the gravitational forces within it bending light. "Take us out, Elias," Anya roared. "Now." The world dissolved. The activation of the anomaly drive was harsher this time, a physical jolt that felt like the ship was being torn apart and stitched back together simultaneously. The view screen went white, then black, then a nauseating swirl of impossible colors. When reality reasserted itself, they were floating in silent, empty space, light years away from the battle. The bridge was deathly quiet. The only sound the frantic panting of the crew and the low hum of life support. They were alive. They had escaped. But the silence that followed was heavy with the weight of their losses. A single icon on the main tactical display blinked red stray light. Signal lost. Presumed destroyed. 172 souls. Erased. Anya felt the loss like a physical blow, an icy void opening in her chest. She had known its captain, a good man named Marcus Thorne. They had come up through the academy together. Now he and his crew were a ghost story, a cautionary tale. Gian finally broke the silence, his voice rough with emotion. Damage report. Widespread structural damage. The hull is compromised in multiple sections. Weapons are offline. Life support is stable. For now. The anomaly drive. It's critical. Dr. Vance. What's our status? Vance's voice, when it came, was thin and reedy, shaken. The quantum anchor is unstable. The last jump nearly shattered it. We pushed it too far. Wow, we veered too fast. We are lucky to be in one piece, let alone in the correct dimension. We can't jump again, not until I can recalibrate the entire assembly. We're stranded here until further notice. Stranded. The word hung in the air, cold and final. They were deep in uncharted territory. A wounded ship with a broken FTL drive and a new hyper-lethal enemy that was now actively hunting them. In the engine room, Elias Vance stared at the drive's diagnostic readings, a cold sweat on his brow. It wasn't just the damage that worried him, it was something else. A subtle anomaly in the energy readings from the moment before their final jump. He isolated the data, running it through a dozen different simulations. The conclusion was always the same. And it was terrifying. "Commander," he said, his voice a strained whisper over the comm. "I need you to see this. I think I know how they adapted so quickly." On the main view screen on the bridge, Vance projected a complex waveform analysis. "This is the quantum signature of our drive during the first flicker strike," he explained, his voice gaining a frantic energy. "It's unique, a fingerprint of our meddling with space-time. And this," he overlaid a second waveform, "is the energy profile of the graviton weapon the hunter used to destroy the stray light. Do you see it?" Anya stared at the screen, her mind slowly grasping the horrifying implication. The two waves weren't identical, but they shared a resonant frequency, a harmonic echo. "They're not just adapting to our tactics," Anya breathed, the full weight of the discovery settling on her. "They're learning from our technology. They're mimicking the drive." "Worse than that," Vance corrected. "They're not mimicking it. They're inverting it. The anomaly drive works by temporarily decoupling us from the causal universe. They've somehow weaponized that principle, creating a targeted gravity shear that does the opposite. It hyper-localizes causality, crushing a ship under the weight of its own existence. They saw our ghost and engineered a way to nail ghosts to the wall. Every time we use our drive, we are teaching them how to kill us more effectively." The bridge fell silent again, but this time it was a silence born of a new and more profound dread. Their greatest weapon, their only advantage, was also a beacon and a teacher for their enemy. Each escape would only make the next chase deadlier. It was during this grim analysis that a junior sensor tech, a young woman named Kaylin, spoke up, her voice hesitant. "Commander, I've been reviewing the sensor logs from the battle, specifically the psychic frequencies. We were focused on blocking the null field, but I found something else. She brought up a new audio file, though audio was the wrong word for it. It was a visualization of a psychic burst, one that had occurred the exact moment their first salvo of torpedoes had struck the chorus ships. It wasn't the blanketing silence of the null field. This was a sharp, focused spike, complex and structured. "What am I looking at?" "Technician," Anya asked. "Ma'am, when we hit them, they screamed," Kaylin said, her eyes wide. "We all felt the feedback, the surprise. But this data shows it wasn't just a random burst of pain. It has syntax, a structure. It's not a scream of an animal. It's the shriek of a complex intelligence in shock. I think it might be the key to their hive mind communication." For the first time in hours, a flicker of something other than despair sparked in Anya's chest. A vulnerability, an enemy that communicated could be disrupted, an enemy that felt pain could be made to fear. "Isolate that signal," she ordered, her voice sharp with renewed purpose. "I want every bit of data you can pull from it. Its frequency phone, its modulation, its psychic resonance. Everything." While Kaylin worked, Jian brought up another piece of harrowing news. "Commander, I've managed to get a partial reading on the Penumbra's status. Their jump was erratic. They landed a few light minutes from our position, but their drive is completely offline, and they're venting atmosphere. They're in even worse shape than we are." He paused, his expression grim. "And there's one other thing. The bait. The freighter Odysseus. It survived the battle. The chorus ignored it completely once we engaged. It's adrift back in the battle zone. Powerless. Its life support failing." Anya closed her eyes, weighing her impossible options. They had 2 crippled anomaly ships, a dying civilian freighter, and a relentless, learning enemy that was almost certainly still hunting for them. Retreat was not an option. Their drives were broken. Fighting was suicide. But doing nothing meant condemning everyone on the Penumbra and the Odysseus to a slow, cold death. "The chorus thinks we've fled," she said, thinking aloud. "They'll be searching the outer sectors, looking for our drive's quantum signature. They won't expect us to go back." Jian stared at her. "Go back, Commander. We have no weapons, no shields, and a drive that might tear us apart if we even look at it wrong." "We're not going back to fight," Anya countered, her gaze sweeping across the bridge, meeting the eyes of her tired, frightened crew. "We're going on a rescue mission. Dr. Vance, what's the absolute bare minimum you need to get the drive functional for one short, low-power jump?" Vance hesitated, running calculations in his head. "I could, theoretically, bypass the shattered anchor and use the ship's own mass as a temporary stabilization point. It would be incredibly risky, and the jump would be short-range and highly inaccurate. But it might work. Once." "That's all I need," Anya said. She turned to her comms officer. "Open a channel to the Penumbra. Tell them to prepare for emergency evacuation. We're coming to get them." And then she looked at the tactical map, at the distant, lonely icon of the Odysseus. "We're going to pick up our survivors." It was a reckless, insane plan. Why? Flying a broken warship back into the lion's den. But as she looked at the recording of the chorus's psychic scream, an idea began to form. A desperate gambit that was even crazier than the rescue itself. "Kaylin," she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "how long would it take you to rig a transmitter that could broadcast that signal back at them?" The young tech looked stunned. "Broadcast it, ma'am. We don't know what it will do." "It will do something," Anya said, in a cold fire in her eyes. And right now, something is better than nothing. They taught us a new lesson about fear today. It's time we return the favor. The order to rescue the Penumbra sent a jolt of terrified purpose through the crippled event horizon. The crew, exhausted and battered, moved with the grim efficiency of soldiers who had long since accepted that their own survival was a secondary objective. In the engine room, Elias Vance and his team worked feverishly, their faces illuminated by the eerie blue glow of the exposed quantum core. They were performing open-heart surgery on reality itself, physically rerouting power conduits and welding bypasses onto the shattered anchor mechanism. Every move was a gamble. A single miscalculation, a single stray energy spike could cause the drive to collapse into a micro-singularity, taking them and a sizable chunk of this star system with it. On the bridge, Anya coordinated the effort, her voice a lifeline of calm in the controlled chaos. She had the Penumbra's last-known coordinates on her screen, a point in the void less than a light minute away, a stone's throw in cosmic terms, but an impassable chasm for a ship with no conventional FTL. Captain Rostova, she said into the comm, her voice formal despite the desperation of their circumstances. We are preparing for a short-range, unanchored jump to your position. The maneuver will be imprecise. Be ready for our arrival at any vector and prepare your crew for immediate emergency extraction. We will have a very small window. The reply from the Penumbra's captain, Eva Rostova, was laced with static, but her tone was iron. We'll be ready. Sharma, we've got 20 minutes of air left in the main fuselage. After that, we start taking casualties. Just try not to materialize inside our reactor room. The gallows humor was a language all serving officers understood. It meant we trust you. But for God's sake, don't miss. While the engineers wrestled with physics, Kaylin, the young sensor tech, worked on her own impossible task. She had isolated the psychic scream, that spike of pure, structured agony from the chorus, and was now trying to turn it into a weapon. It wasn't a matter of simply playing it back. She had to amplify it, focus it, and build a containment field that would allow them to project it without driving their own crew insane. She worked with a haunted look in her eyes, listening to a sound that no human was ever meant to hear, the shriek of a wounded hive mind, over and over again. It feels alive, Commander, she reported to Anya, her voice hushed. It's not just a signal. It's a memory of pain. When I loop it, I can feel it trying to resonate with my own mind. It's looking for a way in. Anya felt a chill run down her spine. Can you weaponize it, Kaylin? I think so, the tech replied, her focus absolute. I can rig a psychic resonance projector using our main comms dish. It'll be a one-shot deal. The feedback will almost certainly fry the entire array. But if I can focus the memory into a tight beam, I have no idea what it will do to them. It might just annoy them. Or it might be the equivalent of throwing a grenade into their central nervous system. It's a chance we'll have to take, Anya said. Keep working. Finally, the call came from the engine room. Commander, we're as ready as we'll ever be. Vance's strained voice echoed on the bridge. The ship's mass is now the focal point for the quantum anchor. I have to warn you, the jump is going to feel violent. There's no way to dampen the transition this way. Hold on to something. Anya gripped the arms of her command chair. To all hands, this is the commander. Brace for emergency jump. She gave a grim nod to the helm. Maya, you have the con. The world did not dissolve this time. It shattered. There was a sound like tearing metal, not outside the ship, but inside every crew member's skull. The stars on the view screen didn't blur. They fractured into a million shards of broken light. The event horizon was thrown sideways through reality, a lurching, brutal transit that slammed the crew against their restraints. For a horrifying moment, the ship itself seemed to stretch and distort, its internal corridors elongating into impossible lengths before snapping back. Then, with a final, bone-jarring shudder, they were back in normal space. The view screen resolved into a horrifying tableau. They had made it, but their arrival was far from clean. They had materialized less than a kilometer from the penumbra, but they were caught in the expanding debris field from its ruptured stern section. The ship was a wreck, its spine broken, its hull peeling away like fruit rind, venting the last of its precious atmosphere into the void in a cloud of frozen crystals. "We're here," Gian stated, the word hanging heavy with the sight of their dying sister ship. "Life signs are faint, concentrated in the forward sections. They're losing life support fast." "Launch the emergency umbilicals," Anya commanded. "Evacuate everyone. Now, Maya. Use maneuvering thrusters to keep us clear of that debris." A flurry of activity erupted as docking tubes and emergency force field corridors were extended toward the penumbra. Figures in emergency evac suits began to stream across, a desperate, silent procession of survivors moving from one dying ship to another. The transfer was agonizingly slow, hampered by the tumbling wreckage and the failing systems on both ships. They were a beacon of activity in the dark, a flashing light daring the chorus to return. After 10 minutes, that felt like 10 years. A grim-faced woman with short-cropped gray hair and the exhausted eyes of a born fighter stepped onto Anya's bridge. It was Eva Rostova. She offered a curt, grateful nod. "All my surviving crew are aboard. Sharma. 112 souls. We lost 54 when the aft section blew. Thank you. You came back for us." "We don't leave our own behind," Anya replied, her gaze already turning back to the tactical display. "Now we have to go back for the others." Rostova frowned, looking at the catastrophic damage reports scrolling across a nearby console. "Others, your ship is barely holding together. We should be finding the deepest, darkest nebula to hide in." Gian stepped forward, his expression grave. "Commander, Captain Rostova is right. We have a ship full of refugees. Our drive is a ticking time bomb, and our hull integrity is shot. We have to reconsider the mission to the Odysseus. Those people on that freighter are alive because we used them as a distraction." Anya shot back, her voice ringing with cold fury. "We baited the trap, and they paid the price. We are not leaving them to die." "That is not a suggestion. It's an order." She turned to Vance. "Elias, can she make one more jump?" The physicist looked like he had aged a decade in the last hour. "Maybe," he croaked. "The principle is the same, but we're heavier now, with the extra crew and their supplies. It will put even more stress on the frame. If we jump back to the battle site and can't jump out again, we'll be trapped." "Kalen, is your new toy ready?" Anya asked. Ignoring him, the young tech gave a shaky thumbs up. "The resonance projector is online, Commander. It's loud, psychically speaking." "Good," Anya said. She looked at her command staff, at the newly arrived Rostova, at the fear and doubt in their eyes, and she hardened her resolve. "We're going in. We'll use Kalen's weapon to create a diversion, get the civilians from the Odysseus, and get out. It's the only way." There was no more argument. The crew of the Event Horizon and the survivors of the Penumbra strapped themselves in, a shared, silent prayer passing between them. The second jump was even worse than the first. The ship screamed, a literal shriek of stressed metal and groaning supports as it was once again violently shoved through the seams of the universe. When they emerged, the sight was even more chilling than the wreck of the Penumbra. They were back in the graveyard they had created. The shattered remains of the first chorus ships drifted in a silent, glittering cloud. In the distance, the main chorus fleet was gone, likely hunting for them, but a handful of smaller, scavenger-class vessels remained, picking through the wreckage like crystalline vultures. And in the middle of it all was the Odysseus, dark, silent, and helpless. "They're here," Jian murmured. "4 of them. They're ignoring the freighter, focusing on the debris. They're harvesting," Rostova observed, her voice filled with a new kind of horror. "They're taking pieces of their own dead." "They're learning," Anya corrected. "And we're about to interrupt the lesson. Kalen, on my mark. Target the largest scavenger and give them the full force of your little science project." "Aye, Commander." Kalen's fingers hovered over her console. "Maya, get us as close to the Odysseus as you can without being seen. Move through the densest part of the debris field." The horizon crept forward, a ghost moving through a boneyard. They were less than 5,000 kilometers from the freighter when one of the scavengers turned, its internal light pulsing as it sensed their presence. "They've spotted us," Jian warned. "Mark," Anya yelled. "Fire it. Kalen." Kalen slammed the activation key. There was no sound, no flash of light. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, from the main comms dish of the event horizon, an invisible, silent beam of pure psychic trauma shot across the void and struck the lead scavenger. The effect was instantaneous and horrifying. The scavenger's calm. Internal blue light flashed to a violent, strobing red. The ship began to convulse, its crystalline structure vibrating so intensely that small shards began to break off its hull. But it didn't explode. It turned on its own kind. It fired its own harvesting beam, a cutting laser of focused energy, directly at the scavenger next to it, slicing it in half. The other 2 chorus ships reeled back, their own lights flashing in what could only be described as confusion and panic. The hive mind had been poisoned. The scream of one had been turned into the madness of all. "It worked," Kalen whispered, staring in horrified awe. "It drove it insane." "The window is own," Anya yelled. "Get those people, now." As the chorus scavengers tore each other apart in a silent, graceful ballet of fratricidal violence, the Horizon's rescue umbilicals snaked out and clamped onto the Odysseus's hull. The freighter's airlock hissed open, and then another stream of survivors, these ones in civilian clothes, gaunt and terrified, began to pour across. The rescue was almost complete when a new icon flashed on the tactical display, huge and terrifyingly familiar, drawn by the psychic chaos. The Crimson Hunter had returned. It emerged from the darkness not with a shimmer, but with a brutal, instantaneous finality, as if it had been there all along. It ignored the insane scavengers. Its cold, silent attention focused entirely on the event horizon. It had found its prey. "All survivors are aboard," Jian shouted over the rising alarms. "Get us out of here, Maya." But there was nowhere to go. The hunter was already charging its graviton weapon, and in the engine room, a new, final alarm began to blare. "Commander!" Vance's voice screamed over the comm, filled with pure terror. "The drive core is critical. The last jump. The extra mass. It's created a feedback loop. The anchor is collapsing. We can't jump. I repeat, We cannot jump. The drive is going to blow. On the view screen, the Crimson Hunter glowed, ready to deliver the killing blow. Trapped, weaponless, and with a ship full of refugees, Anya Sharma looked at the face of her killer and knew, with chilling certainty, that they had run out of miracles. There was no time for a final prayer, no moment for a stoic last stand. There was only the blinding red glow of the hunter's charging weapon and the screaming alarm that signaled the imminent death of their own ship from within. On the bridge of the event horizon, the crew was frozen, trapped between two different flavors of annihilation. It was Vance's voice, cracking with terror, that broke the spell. The containment field is fluctuating. It's going to breach. The detonation won't just be an explosion. It's going to create a chaotic causality event, a localized, unstable reality bubble. It'll unwrite everything in a 10,000-kilometer radius. His words were a death sentence, but Anya's mind, honed by years of impossible choices, seized on a single phrase, unwrite everything. The same power the chorus used against entire worlds was about to be unleashed from her own engine room. In the face of certain death, a sliver of an insane, desperate idea presented itself. "Elias," she said, her voice cutting through the panic with chilling precision. "Can you override the safety protocols and eject the core before it blows?" Vance was momentarily stunned into silence. "Eject the commander? That's insane." "The core is the heart of the ship. There are 100 fail-safes to prevent that. Even if I could, it would be a live bomb and we'd be at ground zero." "We're already at ground zero," Anya shot back. "The hunter is about to fire. Our only chance is to give it a different target. Can you do it? Yes or no?" The hunter's graviton weapon pulsed, its energy output spiking. They had seconds, not minutes. "Theoretically," Vance stammered, his mind racing. "I can trigger an emergency purge, but I'll have to manually bypass every single magnetic interlock. It will tear the engine room apart, and we'll have no main power. Nothing." "You have main power until the moment you hit the button," Anya said. "Jian, reroute every drop of auxiliary power to the maneuvering thrusters. Maya, the second that core is out, I need you to get us moving. We have to put as much distance as we can between us and that reality bubble before it forms." She turned her attention to the tactical screen. The mad scavenger, the one Kalen had hit with the psychic scream, was still erratically firing on its former comrades, creating a zone of chaos and energy bursts. It was their only cover. "Maya, use the scavenger's fight as a screen. Get us on a trajectory that slingshots us around them. We're gonna throw the core at the hunter like a grenade." The bridge became a whirlwind of focused activity. The paralysis of fear replaced by the sharp adrenaline of a final, impossible mission. Down in the engine room, Vance was a man possessed, his fingers dancing over a holographic interface, ripping through layers of safety code he himself had written. Sparks rained down from the ceiling as he forced magnetic clamps to disengage, the ship groaning in protest as its heart was being forcibly disconnected. "The hunter is firing," Jian yelled. On the view screen, the crimson ship unleashed its wave of gravitational force, but instead of a direct killing blow, it was a wider, sweeping pulse, designed to cripple the mad scavengers that were polluting its battle space with psychic noise. The wave slammed into the chaotic fight, and the insane chorus vessel, already unstable, shattered in a flash of silent, crimson light. The shockwave of the blast hit the event horizon, tossing the already damaged ship violently. "Hold our position," Anya commanded through gritted teeth. "Vance, status." "Almost there," the engineer screamed over the sound of tearing metal. The final interlock is disengaged. Core is ready for ejection on your command. You've got 5 seconds from ejection to full breach. Eject now, Anya roared. Deep within the ship, a series of explosive bolts fired. The massive cylindrical quantum core, glowing with the unstable light of its own imminent collapse, was shoved out of the ship's underbelly on a plume of plasma. It tumbled through the void, a beacon of raw, untamed reality, flying directly toward the Crimson Hunter. The Hunter reacted instantly. It recognized the threat, the sheer concentration of unnatural energy. It aborted its next graviton charge and fired a series of smaller, precise cutting lasers at the tumbling core, trying to destroy it at a distance, but it was too late. The 5 seconds were up. The core did not explode. It unhappened. For a single silent moment, the glowing cylinder simply vanished. In its place, a perfect sphere of absolute blackness appeared, a hole in the universe that drank the light of the surrounding stars. Then the sphere fractured, not like glass, but like a broken mirror reflecting 1,000 different realities at once. Light bent at impossible angles. Colors that had no names bled into space. A wave of pure chaos washed outwards. It wasn't energy or matter. It was a tsunami of broken physics. The Hunter, caught at point-blank range, was engulfed. Its crimson light was snuffed out instantly. Its physical form seemed to shimmer, to lose cohesion, as if the universe could no longer agree on its exact shape or location. It was stretched, compressed, and twisted. Not by physical force, but by the complete and utter failure of physical law. The reality bubble stabilized, collapsing in on itself, and where the Crimson Hunter and the quantum core had been, there was now a new, impossible object, a massive crystalline statue of the chorus ship, perfectly preserved but utterly still, trapped in a jagged, multifaceted crystal that seemed to be made of frozen time itself. It was a monument to its own death, a fly caught in the amber of a broken universe. On the bridge of the event horizon, the crew stared in stunned silence. The main power was gone, the only light coming from the faint red glow of emergency chemical lights and the distant, beautiful, terrifying crystal. The ship was adrift, powerless, its back broken, its heart torn out. But it was alive. Did we win? Kaylin whispered, her voice trembling. No, Anya said softly, her eyes fixed on the frozen Hunter. We survived. There's a difference. For the next several hours, they were a ghost ship in a graveyard, with the Penumbra's engineers led by a shell-shocked but brilliant Elias Vance. They managed to restore auxiliary power, enough for life support and basic systems. The anomaly drive was gone, a gaping hole in the ship where it used to be. The main engines were dead. They were stranded, light years from any friendly port, in the heart of what was now undeniably chorus territory. Captain Rostova stood beside Anya on the darkened bridge, the two commanders looking out at the silent battlefield. What now? Sharma, Rostova asked, her voice heavy. We can't run. We can't fight. And our food and water supplies, even with the freighter stores, won't last forever. Anya didn't answer immediately. She was watching Kaylin, who was hunched over her sensor console, which she had jury-rigged to a backup power cell. The young tech had been obsessively scanning the temporal crystal, the tomb of their enemy. Commander, Kaylin said, her voice filled with a strange excitement. I'm getting something from the crystal. When the core detonated, the reality wave didn't just trap the Hunter, it peeled back its layers. I'm reading its internal systems, It's psychic architecture, and I've found something. A signal. A signal, Anya asked, moving to her side. The chorus doesn't use signals. This isn't a communication, Kaylin explained, pointing to a cascading stream of data on her screen. It's more like a homing beacon, a constant, low-level psychic resonance that connects every chorus ship back to a single source point. It's their anchor, their command node. It's how the hive mind stays connected. She highlighted a string of coordinates that the system was slowly, painstakingly decrypting from the psychic echo. I think I know where they come from. Not a homeworld, but a central processing point. A nexus. A target. The word was unspoken, but it electrified the air on the bridge. For years, humanity had been fighting a faceless, silent wave, a force of nature with no discernible weakness or center of command. Now, locked in the heart of their greatest foe, they had found a clue to its brain. How far? Anya asked, her voice a low whisper. Kaylin finished her calculation. Her face fell. It's deep, deep in the Perseus arm. In a sector of space our charts just mark as unexplored void. It would take a conventional ship decades to get there, even with an anomaly drive. She trailed off, looking at the gaping wound in their own ship. We don't have an anomaly drive, Jian said, stating the obvious, his tone flat and defeated. But Anya was looking at the crystal, at the frozen, perfect form of the chorus hunter. It was a ship that could manipulate gravity, that had learned to invert their own reality-bending technology. It was a machine of impossible power, and it was dead. No, Anya said, a wild, audacious plan blooming in her mind. We don't have our drive. But the chorus brought a spare. Rostova and Jian stared at her, then at the crystal, the dawning horror and understanding on their faces. Commander, you can't be serious, Jian breathed. We have no idea how their technology works. Trying to interface with that thing is suicide. Staying here is a slower suicide, Anya countered. That ship learned how to mimic our tech. It's time we return the favor. Dr. Vance, she called over the comm, her voice ringing with newfound, near-maniacal purpose. I have a new project for you. I want you to figure out how to crack open that crystal and perform a field autopsy. We're going to give the Event Horizon a heart transplant. Here is the continuation of the story from the provided file. The decision to perform a heart transplant on the Event Horizon was not met with cheers, but with a profound, terrified silence. The crew, now a mix of 3 different commands, the Horizon's veterans, the Penumbra's grim survivors, and the Odysseus's shell-shocked civilians, looked at their commander as if she had finally succumbed to the madness of the void. To approach the crystalline tomb of the hunter was to dance on their own graves. To try and harness its power was to invite the devil in for dinner. It was Elias Vance, pale and trembling, but with a feverish light in his eyes, who broke the spell. It's theoretically possible, he whispered, the words sounding like heresy even to himself. The chaotic causality event froze the ship in a single, infinitely repeating moment of space-time. It's not truly dead, merely paused. If we can disrupt the temporal frequency of the crystal, we might be able to unpause its internal systems without restoring the ship itself. The mission began not with a bang, but with a crawl. Small, 2-person survey pods, their hulls reinforced with what little plating they could scavenge, crept toward the massive, jagged crystal. They moved with agonizing slowness, their sensors taking readings, their crews reporting back in hushed, awestruck tones. The crystal did not radiate energy, it absorbed it. creating a zone of absolute cold and silence around itself that was even more profound than the vacuum of space. For 3 days, they studied their prize, their tombstone, their only hope. The breakthrough came, as Anya suspected it might, from Kalen, the young tech who now seemed to possess a haunted empathy for the enemy's psychic signature, discovered a flaw in the prison, the psychic scream, she explained on the bridge, pointing to a complex energy model. It's what made the scavenger go mad. The hunter was adapting to it, creating a counter-frequency when the core blew. That counter-frequency is now frozen into the crystal structure, like a key in a lock. If I can broadcast a reverse phase, low-amplitude version of the original scream, I think I can make the crystal resonate. It might create a stable fracture, a single crack big enough to get inside. Or it might shatter the whole thing and release whatever's left of the hunter's consciousness. Captain Rostova countered, her arms crossed, her face a mask of skepticism. That's a risk we'll have to take, Anya said, her decision final. Kalen's plan worked. Rigging the jury-rigged psychic projector, she sent out a gentle, probing whisper of the scream. The colossal crystal responded. A single hairline fracture traced its way across the surface, a silent lightning bolt spreading for kilometers. Then, with the groan of a dying glacier, a massive section of the crystal calved away, revealing the pristine, crimson hull of the chorus hunter within. There was no explosion, no release of energy, just a silent, open wound. Vance led the boarding party himself, clad in heavy engineering EVA suits. They crossed the gap and entered the hunter through a fissure in its hull. The interior was unlike anything they had ever imagined. It was not a machine. It was an anatomy. Veins of pulsing red light snaked along walls that felt like cool, smooth bone. The air, recycled through their suits, was filled with the scent of ozone and something else, something vaguely organic and metallic, like fresh blood. There were no consoles, no chairs, no corridors as they understood them. There was only a single, vast, cathedral-like chamber at the ship's heart, and in the center of that chamber was the drive. It was a pulsating, living star of crimson light, a nexus of crystalline structures and thick, biological cables that merged with the very fabric of the ship. It was beautiful and monstrous, and as they approached, it seemed to notice them. A low psychic hum filled their helmets, a feeling of inquiry, of a vast and ancient intelligence waking from a long dream. Its power source is integrated, Vance reported back to Anya, his voice shaking with a mix of terror and scientific awe. It's biomechanical. It's not a reactor we can simply disconnect and move. To interface with it, we'd have to physically bond our systems to its nervous system. He paused, the implication dawning on him. Someone would have to connect to it, not just with a cable, but with their mind. The bridge of the event horizon fell silent. Their wild plan had hit an impossible wall. They couldn't ask someone to plug their consciousness into an alien god machine that had, hours before, been trying to annihilate them. "I'll do it," Anya said, her voice quiet but firm. Jian immediately stepped forward. "Commander, no. We don't know what it will do. It could destroy your mind, erase you. And the course has been trying to erase me since Thea," Anya replied, a grim smile on her face. "This time, at least, I'll see my killer's face. Kalen, you have the most experience with their psychic frequency. You will guide me from your console. Dr. Vance, you will tell me what to touch. Jian, you have the command. If my vital signs flatline, or if I give any indication that I am no longer myself, You are to sever the connection and blow this entire section of space to hell. Is that understood?" There was no arguing. Her command was absolute. Minutes later, Anya stood before the living heart of the chorus ship, a makeshift neural interface. A crown of wires and sensors scavenged from a medbay scanner was fitted to her helmet. Vance guided her hands to a specific junction point on the drive, a place where a thick, pulsing cable met a smooth, obsidian-like crystal. "This is it, Commander," Vance said, his voice a ghost in her ear. "This is the primary psychic nexus." "Connecting you, Commander," Kalen whispered. "Be careful. Try not to fight it. Just listen." Anya placed her gloved hands on the nexus. The moment she made contact, the universe fell away. It was not a wave of pain or a psychic attack. It was a flood of understanding. A billion years of silent, patient existence poured into her mind. She saw the birth of galaxies, the death of stars. She felt the chorus's perspective, not as a conquering army, but as cosmic gardeners. They perceived the chaotic, screaming energy of individual consciousness as a disease, a form of cosmic suffering. Their silence was not a weapon. To them, it was a cure. Erasure was an act of mercy, of bringing a painful, noisy universe back to a state of perfect, silent peace. She felt her own identity, her memories, her name Anya Sharma beginning to dissolve. A single drop of rain falling into an infinite ocean. The peace was seductive. It would be so easy to let go, to join the silent, perfect chorus. "They killed Marcus Thorne," a voice whispered in her mind. Her voice. "They killed the crew of the Stray Light. They would have killed us all." The rage, the grief, the fierce, stubborn love for her crew, for the messy, imperfect, noisy story of humanity. It was the anchor. She didn't fight the chorus consciousness. She couldn't. Instead, she offered it a deal. "You want to understand us," she projected, not in words, but in pure intent. "I am humanity. I am our chaos, our fear, our hope, and we will not be silenced. But you have what I need. Power. A way home. Work with me. Let me guide you. And in return, I will show you what it truly means to be alive. On the bridge." Anya's body went rigid. Alarms blared as her life signs spiked and then plummeted. "She's failing," Jian yelled. "Cut the connection." "No! Wait!" Kalen shouted, her eyes wide, pointing at the view screen. "Look, outside." The chorus hunter began to change. The crimson light softened, shifting to a deep, royal purple. Veins of the same purple light snaked out from the hunter, across the emergency umbilicals, and into the event horizon. The ship groaned, not in protest, but like a body drawing its first breath. The emergency lights on the bridge flickered and died, replaced by a steady, soft, purple luminescence that seemed to emanate from the very walls. The hum of the dying auxiliary generators was replaced by a low, resonant thrum that was felt more than heard, a steady, powerful heartbeat. Anya opened her eyes. She was still in the heart of the hunter, but she was also on her own bridge, looking through her own eyes. She could feel every system, every crew member, every plate of the hull of both ships as if they were extensions of her own body. The two vessels had become one. She returned to the bridge, her step steady, her eyes glowing with a faint purple afterimage. She walked to her command chair, which now had thin, glowing purple lines embedded in its surface. "Dr. Vance," she said, and her voice was her own, but layered with a faint, harmonic resonance. "Report." Vance stared at his console, his mouth agape. The power core is stable. All systems are online. More than online. The ship, it's repairing itself. The hull breaches a ceiling. The drive, it's not just an anomaly drive anymore. It doesn't just bend space. Commander, I think it can ride it. Anya looked at the main view screen. With a mere thought, she brought up the coordinates Kalen had found. The path to the Chorus Nexus. Jian, she said, her voice echoing with the power of a captured star. Set a course. Jian looked at her, at the woman who was and was not his commander, at the ship that was and was not the Event Horizon. He saw the grim determination in her eyes, the same fire, now burning with an alien light. He nodded slowly. Aye, Commander. The Event Horizon, now a seamless fusion of human desperation and alien power, a ghost ship with the heart of a silent god, turned its bow toward the unexplored void. They had survived. They had adapted to hunt the monster. They had become something monstrous themselves. And now, they were going to the heart of the silence to teach it how to scream.